Did you know the UK deported more asylum seekers in the last 6 months than in any other period in modern history? And now, with a sweeping immigration overhaul in 2025, experts warn millions more could be next. Some call it a long overdue cleanup of a broken system. Others call it the beginning of a humanitarian crisis. One thing's clear: the rules have changed, and the consequences are massive. From limiting refugee protections to cutting off benefits for legal migrants, the UK government is tightening its grip like never before. But what's really going on behind the headlines? Is this about restoring order or reshaping the country's future? In this video, we're breaking down the 10 key immigration rules that could determine who stays, who goes, and who gets left in limbo. These aren't just policies, they are life-changing decisions affecting real people, and you need to understand them. Number 1. Temporary asylum only, 30-month limit. In a major shift from previous asylum policies, the UK government now grants refugees only 30 months of leave to remain, instead of permanent protection from the start. This means that even those who successfully prove they are fleeing war, persecution, or violence are not given long-term security. Instead, they must live in the UK under temporary status, with the possibility of extension, but no guarantee. Refugees will now have to meet stricter criteria in the future if they wish to stay permanently, including proving their economic contribution or ability to integrate. The government claims this change is about fairness and control. Officials argue that many refugees settle permanently even after conditions in their home countries improve, and that this policy gives the UK flexibility to reassess each case. It's also positioned as a way to discourage illegal entry, especially via dangerous routes like small boats across the channel. But critics argue it's a deeply destabilizing rule. Imagine fleeing your home, surviving dangerous journeys, starting over in a new country, only to be told you're on a countdown clock. For many refugees, 30 months is not enough time to build a new life, learn the language, or secure stable employment. The risk is that this rule creates a cycle of fear and instability, where refugees are never quite sure if they're safe or welcome. It could also place a heavier burden on legal systems, with more appeals, reviews, and extended uncertainty for both the migrants and the institutions that support them. This rule doesn't just change the paperwork. It changes lives in a way that many human rights groups are calling unfair and inhumane. Number 2. Degree now required for most skilled visas. In 2025, the UK government made a bold move to reshape the definition of a skilled worker. Under the new policy, most job roles that qualify for a skilled worker visa now require a university degree, no exceptions for experience, training, or prior work history. This change is part of a larger push to cut down on what officials describe as an over-reliance on low-skilled migration and instead focus on attracting professionals in sectors like tech, engineering, and healthcare. It's meant to align immigration policy with national workforce needs and economic growth. Supporters of this rule argue that the UK needs to prioritize high-value migration, especially with public services under strain and job markets evolving rapidly. They claim that too many visas were previously going to applicants filling roles that could be trained domestically. By raising the bar, the government hopes to reduce numbers while boosting economic output and ensuring that migrants who come in are able to contribute at the highest level. It also creates a clearer path for highly educated professionals who want to move to the UK under transparent, strict standards. But here's the problem: not every vital job needs a degree. Many essential sectors like care work, logistics, and hospitality depend on skilled workers who may not hold formal qualifications but have years of experience. This rule risks creating massive labor shortages in these areas, driving up costs and leaving vulnerable populations unsupported. It could also shut out talented workers from poorer countries where access to higher education is limited. The real danger: the UK might lose out on skilled, hard-working individuals not because they can't do the job, but because they can't show a diploma. In practice, this rule may end up hurting the very sectors it's trying to protect. Number 3. 10-year wait for permanent residency. One of the most controversial changes in the UK's 2025 immigration reform is the proposal to double the waiting period for indefinite leave to remain, ILR, also known as permanent residency. Previously, many migrants could apply for ILR after 5 years of lawful residence. Under the new rules, they'll need to wait 10 full years before they can even be considered. This doesn't just apply to asylum seekers or refugees. It affects skilled workers, students transitioning to work visas, and even long-term residents contributing to the UK economy and society. According to the government, this extension is about ensuring migrants are fully integrated before they are granted permanent status. Officials argue that a longer waiting period allows more time to assess someone's commitment to the UK, whether they pay taxes, stay out of trouble, and positively contribute to their communities. On paper, it's being sold as a way to encourage greater responsibility and discourage short-term migration strategies. The government believes that those who truly intend to build a life in the UK will stay the course. But critics say this change is both unfair and counterproductive. For many, 10 years is a huge portion of their lives, and being stuck in temporary status for that long can mean constant anxiety over visa renewals, work restrictions, and the fear of deportation. It also makes it harder for families to reunite or settle, especially when children are involved. Imagine working, paying taxes, and contributing to your community for nearly a decade, yet still being considered a temporary resident. This rule could delay stability for thousands of people who already view the UK as home, and create a system where even law-abiding, hard-working migrants feel unwelcome and stuck in limbo. Number 4. No benefits without citizenship. Under the new 2025 immigration policy, migrants will no longer be eligible for public benefits or social housing, even after years of legally living and working in the UK. Access to these essential services will now be reserved for those who have acquired full British citizenship. That means even migrants with indefinite leave to remain, ILR, who have lived in the UK for years and contributed through taxes, will still be excluded from key support systems unless they take the final step of naturalization. This marks a clear shift from previous policies where ILR status often came with access to public services. The government argues this change is necessary to protect public funds and ensure that welfare support goes only to those fully committed to the UK long-term. Officials say that in times of high demand on housing and social services, it's important to give priority to British citizens. By raising the bar, they hope to encourage migrants to go all the way and become fully naturalized. In their view, this will foster stronger social cohesion and prevent the system from being abused by those who only plan to stay temporarily or rely on benefits early in their stay. However, critics warn this policy could have serious real-world consequences. Migrants who lose jobs, fall ill, or face sudden emergencies may be left with no safety net, even after working legally for years. It could push already vulnerable people into poverty, homelessness, or exploitation, especially in industries with unstable wages or poor protections. Many also see it as a form of punishment for not pursuing citizenship fast enough, despite the costs and complex process involved. For thousands of families, this change could mean having to choose between survival and staying in the country they now call home. Number 5. Limited asylum support and faster deportations. A major change in the 2025 UK immigration policy is the tightening of asylum support and the introduction of accelerated deportation processes for those whose claims are rejected. Under the new framework, asylum seekers who are deemed able to work or support themselves financially may lose access to state support such as housing, food assistance, or basic allowances. In addition, the government is introducing fast-track procedures to remove individuals whose applications are labeled as clearly unfounded or unmeritorious, sometimes before they've had a full opportunity to appeal or access legal representation. The official reasoning behind this policy is to discourage abuse of the asylum system and reduce long processing backlogs. Government leaders argue that many people file claims not because they are fleeing danger, but because they see the asylum system as a backdoor route into the country. By cutting off financial incentives and speeding up removals, the government hopes to deter false claims and focus resources on genuine refugees. The policy is also intended to reduce pressure on the UK's overburdened housing and welfare systems, particularly in areas where migrant arrivals are high. But human rights groups, charities, and legal experts are sounding the alarm. They argue that this change could lead to wrongful deportations, where vulnerable individuals are sent back to dangerous conditions without proper evaluation. Stripping support from people who are still waiting for a decision, often for months or years, can leave them homeless, hungry, and at risk of exploitation. Many asylum seekers don't have the legal literacy, language skills, or resources to navigate the system quickly. This rule risks turning an already complex asylum process into a race against time, where the most vulnerable suffer the most, and justice becomes secondary to speed. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who values truth over headlines. So tell us in the comments, which of these new rules shocks you the most, and why? We pour countless hours into research to bring you real, unbiased insights. So please, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means everything to us. Number 6. Crackdown on illegal working and employer fines. The UK government's 2025 immigration overhaul has brought with it a serious clampdown on illegal working, targeting not just undocumented migrants, but also the businesses that employ them. Immigration enforcement has significantly increased workplace raids, with over 11,000 raids reported in the last year alone. Employers found to be hiring workers without the correct visas or documentation now face heavier fines and legal consequences, including bans from operating. This new rule is part of a wider strategy to make the UK a hostile environment for unlawful immigration. According to the government, this policy is necessary to protect jobs for legal workers, ensure tax compliance, and prevent abuse of labor laws. Officials argue that illegal work fuels exploitation, undercuts wages, and puts pressure on public services. By holding employers accountable and making it riskier to hire off-the-books workers, the government hopes to discourage both sides of the problem, those who enter the country unlawfully and those who profit from it. The message is clear. If you're not working legally, you're not working at all. But the consequences are far-reaching and complex. Many undocumented migrants are driven to illegal work not out of choice, but out of desperation, often because of long delays in visa processing or bans on working while awaiting asylum decisions. This crackdown doesn't just affect individuals. It also disrupts entire industries like agriculture, construction, and hospitality, where migrant labor plays a crucial role. There's also a growing fear among legal migrants, who worry about being targeted or wrongly accused. The real danger is that this policy creates an atmosphere of suspicion and fear, pushing vulnerable workers even deeper into the shadows, where exploitation becomes harder to detect and justice is even further out of reach. Number 7. Fast removal of illegal arrivals. One of the most hardline elements of the 2025 immigration changes is the UK's commitment to rapidly remove migrants who enter the country illegally, especially those arriving by small boats across the English Channel. The government has signed new returns agreements with countries like France, Iraq, and Rwanda, allowing the UK to deport individuals almost immediately after arrival, even before their asylum claims are fully processed. This means that many people, including potential refugees, could be sent back without a thorough review of their circumstances. The government insists this is about deterrence and safety. Officials argue that people smuggling routes are dangerous and often deadly, and the promise of fast removal will discourage individuals from risking the journey. They also believe it will relieve the overwhelming burden on border facilities and reduce the backlog of asylum claims. By working closely with other countries to return people swiftly, the UK aims to show it has taken back control of its borders and is not a soft target for illegal migration. But critics warn this approach may violate international refugee laws and put innocent lives at risk. Not everyone who arrives illegally is doing so by choice. Many are fleeing war, persecution, or trafficking and have no safe or legal way to claim asylum. Sending them back without proper screening could return them to danger or even death. There's also concern that these removals are happening so quickly that people don't have time to access lawyers or explain their situation. This rule paints everyone with the same brush, treating victims and smugglers alike, and risks turning the UK's borders into revolving doors, where vulnerable people are pushed away before they are even heard. For many, it raises a difficult question. Is security being prioritized over basic human rights? Number 8. Broader grounds for visa refusals and deportation. In 2025, The UK expanded the legal powers of immigration authorities by broadening the criteria for visa refusals and deportation orders. This means it's now easier than ever for the Home Office to deny visa applications or remove individuals from the country, based on a wider range of reasons, including vague definitions like public interest, character concerns, or even non-compliance with immigration processes. Previously, removal or refusal often required clear legal violations, but under the new rules, discretion plays a much larger role. Supporters of this change argue that it gives the UK greater flexibility to manage who enters and who stays in the country. The government claims it needs these powers to prevent abuse of the system, protect national security, and allow immigration officers to respond more quickly to suspicious behavior or incomplete documentation. In their view, this is about efficiency and restoring trust in a system that has long been criticized for being too slow, too soft, or too open to exploitation. However, critics are raising alarm bells about the lack of transparency and accountability in how these broader powers are being used. The expanded criteria open the door to subjective decision-making, where an individual's fate could depend on interpretation rather than hard facts. Legal experts warn that innocent people could be refused entry or deported based on assumptions, technicalities, or bureaucratic delays, with limited avenues for appeal. Migrants already in the country may feel like they are walking on a tightrope, never sure if a minor mistake or policy change could cost them their right to stay. This rule adds a layer of uncertainty and fear for thousands of people who are trying to do the right thing, but now face an immigration system that's faster to say no than ever before. Number 9. New work or study pathway for refugees. Among the more strategic changes in the 2025 immigration policy is the introduction of a work or study pathway for refugees, offering a faster and more stable route to residency, but only for those who can prove they are contributing through employment or education. Refugees who can secure a job or enroll in approved training or study programs may be eligible to apply for extended leave or even settlement sooner than the standard 30-month period, provided they meet certain criteria and, in some cases, pay application or integration fees. The government promotes this rule as a way to reward integration and self-reliance. By encouraging refugees to enter the workforce or gain qualifications, the policy aims to shift perceptions, presenting refugees not as burdens but as contributors to the economy and society. It's also positioned as a cost-saving strategy, reducing reliance on public services and speeding up the settlement process for those who demonstrate a clear commitment to building a life in the UK. On paper, it sounds like a win-win. Give more to those who give back. But this pathway is not as accessible as it may seem. Many refugees arrive with limited English skills, no UK-recognized qualifications, and high levels of trauma from their experiences. Securing work or study opportunities within a short time frame can be incredibly difficult, especially without support, legal status, or the financial means to cover course fees or travel. Critics worry this rule creates a two-tier refugee system, where only the most capable or fortunate gain stability, while others fall further behind. It also places immense pressure on vulnerable people to prove their worth immediately after escaping often life-threatening conditions. For some, the pathway could open doors, but for many, it may just add another barrier. Number 10. Drastic reduction in migration targets. Perhaps the most defining aim of the UK's 2025 immigration policy is the government's push for a massive reduction in net migration. After years of record-breaking figures, with net migration crossing 1 million in 2023, the new strategy is built around the promise to bring numbers down significantly. This doesn't just mean cutting back on asylum seekers or undocumented arrivals. It includes reducing legal migration routes too, including skilled workers, international students, family reunification visas, and long-term residents. The target is clear: fewer people entering through fewer doors. Government officials argue this shift is necessary to relieve pressure on public services, housing, and infrastructure. They claim that previous migration levels were unsustainable and led to overcrowded schools, strained healthcare, and rising rents. By tightening visa requirements, increasing salary thresholds, and raising the bar for settlement, the UK hopes to filter out only those deemed economically essential while discouraging long-term or low-skilled migration. It's a bold move aimed at reshaping the country's demographic and economic future. But critics say the plan is overly aggressive and dangerously short-sighted. The UK has long depended on migrant workers to fill crucial roles in healthcare, agriculture, hospitality, and care services, many of which don't meet the new wage or education criteria. Cutting off these pipelines could leave major gaps in the labor market, slow economic growth, and hurt both employers and vulnerable communities. There are also fears of deepening social divides, as this policy may fuel anti-immigrant rhetoric and increase hostility toward newcomers. For thousands of families hoping to reunite, students seeking education, or workers chasing opportunity, the message is harsh and simple. There's no longer room. The numbers may go down, but the impact on real lives could be felt for years to come. The UK's 2025 immigration overhaul isn't just a set of policy updates. It's a complete transformation of how the country decides who gets to stay, who gets to contribute, and who gets pushed out. From shortened asylum rights to tougher visa rules and stricter deportation powers, this new framework signals a future where fewer people will be welcomed, and more will be watched, judged, or removed. For some, these changes are necessary for control and fairness. For others, they represent a harsh step toward exclusion and uncertainty. What's clear is that millions of lives could be affected, directly or indirectly. Families may be torn apart by delays or denials. Workers may be blocked from jobs they're qualified for. Refugees may be left in limbo, trying to prove their worth in a system that keeps raising the bar. And yet, many of these stories remain unheard, buried beneath political slogans and policy documents. That's why videos like this matter. Because behind every rule, there's a human cost, and it deserves attention. Now it's your turn. What do you think about these new rules? Are they fair? Are they necessary? Are they going too far? Let's talk in the comments. I read every one. If you found this video helpful, support us with a like, and share it with someone who needs to know what's happening. And if you want more clear, researched explainers on topics that truly matter, subscribe to our channel. It takes just one click, but it means the world to us. We put a lot of time and energy into making content that cuts through the noise. Your support keeps us going. Thanks for watching.